All right. So, hi, we are back again with another interview. This time we decided to do a repeat because the last conversation that I had with BASTI RIEDER was just so dynamic and interesting and illuminating on so many levels that we were like, you know what? We're just going to have to do this again like next week. So here we are. I'm with BASTI RIEDER again. I'm going to let BASTI present himself. I'm Jillian. You guys know me, nutrition coach based out of Barcelona. And yeah, here's a little bit about BASTI.
Hey guys, I'm Basti, and I'm a CrossFit Level 4 trainer. I have opened the first CrossFit gym, or one of the first CrossFit gyms in Central Europe, CrossFit Vienna, about 10 years ago. And over the last couple of years, I've been pretty much more interested in like the neurology of training and brain control of movement, but also behavior. And like I'm about to start a PhD in this as well, in medical neuroscience. So I'm kind of like geeking out on that stuff. I still love training, nutrition, everything that goes around with it. But I feel kind of like the need to go back to my scientific roots. I have a master's in mathematics with a specialty in biomathematics. So this is kind of like my background.
So I love hearing every time. I mean, this is obviously not the first time I've heard you present yourself, but I love listening to this because I think that, people think like, oh, like meatheads and training and like, you just go in there and like, throw things down. But I think that, people forget that like training has evolved so much from the like, let's just throw down as hard as we can. And there is so much thought behind like a well-designed program that even people see CrossFit and they're like, well, CrossFit's just random. And it's like, it's not actually though. And if you're going to a box where it is random, then you should probably change boxes.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think this is still one of the biggest issues. Like I've been teaching level 1 and level 2 CrossFit courses for almost 10 years. And I think like a lot of the misconceptions, especially from people that have an original like sports scientific training background, they think it's super random because they are still kind of based on this approach of periodization that I think is very, very weak scientific, like underlying foundations. And I think for these kind of people, it's very hard to see the structure that most CrossFit gyms implement actually fairly well in their daily programming. But, I think there are so many things that go hand in hand. I think, well, one side is the programming at the box, but then on the other hand, also the implementation and how you actually scale the workouts for athletes. I think there's so many factors that go into making the program more effective that are way beyond the programming. And I think one of the other things that I've realized over the last 10 years is I think I started training people in CrossFit around 2006, 2007. And I have to say that the population that came to the CrossFit gyms were completely different. That's what I always tell people right now. It's like back in the days when nobody knew about CrossFit. I opened my box. I think I was the only person in Austria that knew about CrossFit. Like the people that found us were super sporty people. So they had a real interest. They were moving a lot already, and for them it was kind of an addition to their normal like movement or a substitution for the other training that they did. What we see today, like 10, 15 years later, is that it has become actually mainstream, and that so many different people come. And I think what changed dramatically within this with this transition is also the frequency of how often people attend. And I think that the issue here is, like back in the days, I talked to my colleague from the other box, from the Starship, and he said back in the days, like 9 years ago, we were making fun of people that only showed up 3 times at the box.
Yeah.
Because we were all coming 5 to 6 times every week. And what we've seen right now is that the average is around 2.5 times. So some people only come 2 times per week. And I think that it's really hard to justify the extreme variance that we have in the program. Oftentimes, because I think it oftentimes hinders people to make better progress. So a simple example, I'm always super pissed when I hear that people at my box can't do a push-up, even if they've trained for a year. But I think very often it's either a lack of from our side of scaling it properly for the people, but also I think it's the lack of repetition of doing the pushing movement regular enough, not only the push-up, but maybe the overhead and dip, because they itself is think it's the best methodology out there to train other people and to make them fit. I think we need to come up with ways to maybe adjust a little bit better to the current situation and the people that are coming to our boxes.
Yeah, I think that, I definitely see that, because some people say like, oh, like I feel like I'm only coming to CrossFit X amount of days a week, and so I'm not progressing. And it's like, well, here's the thing, is that when a program is designed, it's like any gym program. If you, even if you're doing periodization, but you only do 2 days out of the week, like you're not going to see progress. But people are like, well, because CrossFit's so random, like I don't see progress. And it's like, well, if you commit to anything, like you can do periodization, you can do CrossFit, you can do whatever, but you have to commit to it. And so it's like someone that says, I want to run a half marathon, but they only want to run 1 day a week. And it's like, well, you're not going to progress. And so I think
that's a great example.
Yeah. And so I think that that's where people are like, oh, CrossFit's so random. It's like, to be honest, for me, the reason why I don't do CrossFit as often anymore, it was a lot of the intensity side of it. So for me, it was like, I just felt personally for my body and how I recover, I didn't need as much intensity as I used to. And so that's why I switched out of more or into a more like bodybuilding style programming. But the fact of the matter is that if you commit to doing CrossFit X amount of days a week and your program is set for that, like say you're doing 3 days a week and you have a 3-day-a-week CrossFit program, then that is going to give you results. But if you have a 5-day-a-week CrossFit program and you decide to only do 3 days of it, like of course you're not going to see the same results.
Like I want to become a really good power lifter, but I always skip the deadlift day. And then
exactly.
Deadlift. It's like, I never done it, but whatever. Let's see how it goes. It didn't go so well. I mean, it's, as you said, I think it's kind of self-explanatory. And I also think it's like kind of built into the original methodology is like the 3 on 1 off schedule, so that you train around 5 to 6 times a week and not 1 or 2 times a week. And I think this is where a lot of the stuff is not working so properly, when people that are not doing a lot of sports, that are not very athletic, that have an office background for the last couple of decades, enter the box, and then they think they'll get the same results with like 1 or 2 times training per week. And I think this is where the big disconnect happens.
So I have a question for you as a box owner, and how do you sort of remedy that? If you know, or do you not? So it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, do you try to fit the circle peg in the square hole, or do you change the hole to fit the peg? As a box owner, do you know like, hey, this person's only going to come 2 times a week, so I change my programming? Or do you say like, look, this is the way it is, and set the expectation that like they're not going to see the same results? So I think it's hard as a box owner or a coach.
You know what I think is super interesting? Have you read Fitness in 100 Words recently from Glassman?
I haven't, but I feel like it like is stuck in my brain.
So Adrian should put it in when he's editing the video. I think he should put it in. And I think what it says there is practice major lifts regularly.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much bang for the buck that you can get from like basic strength training. So I've been contemplating about this very, very long. Initially, what I decided to do is that we offer more like strict gymnastics, more powerlifting style classes for people that were actually really well attended. So there was more like a strength bias. But I still think that people very selectively pick what they want to do. And they like the main goal is not to really get well adapted and well rounded. It's the goal is that I want to do the stuff that I like and that I'm actually already good at.
Oh,
so my plan, actually I came up with this half a year ago, is that people can pick. So we have a little bit more, I don't want to say strength classes, but let's call them strength classes for now. But that they need to pick at least 1. They can pick 2 or even 3 classes per week where they get an individual program, or let's say a partially individualized program. So let's say you just started CrossFit and you have done our foundations course and you want to do strength training once a week regular. So what they'll be going to do is they start with maybe front squats and deadlifts in this class. And then there's another guy who is picking like three times per week and he wants to do more weightlifting. So there's a coach there, but every person kind of gets their like their individual programming, but they need to do regular strength work once a week or twice a week. And then they can pick other stuff as well. I think because you mentioned the intensity, I think going a little bit longer is really beneficial for most people. Like not go like spiking up your heart rate to 190 and doing it every day. So I think one strength workout is good, really good. Then one longer session, like about like maybe 30 to 45 minutes of fairly high intensity, but not crazy high intensity. And the rest they can pick about, I just want to do and go do CrossFit.
Yeah. I think though it's so confusing as an individual when you first start. And I think it's also tough because usually what happens is, and I'm sure you see this all the time, is like people start CrossFit and they're like, oh, I'm just going to do this 2 days a week. Oh, I'm just going to do this 3 days a week. And then they like get obsessed with CrossFit and they want to do it every day. And then they get to a point where it's like, yeah, you're trying to train at intensity 6 days a week. Like no wonder you're exhausted and like your shoulders hurt. People are like, oh, well, it's because CrossFit's dangerous. It's like, no. Anything is dangerous if you take it to the extreme, like literally anything. You can eat too much broccoli and cause yourself problems. But it's like this thing where people want results quickly and they think that there's like one extreme way to do things that's going to be the solution to all their problems. And so then as a coach, you're sort of like, okay, so no, CrossFit isn't dangerous, but the way you're doing CrossFit is dangerous. And then how as a coach or as a gym owner, do you get that across to people? Because obviously you want to make money. So you want people to attend your gym. But on the other hand, it's like, you want people to be like, hey, like, I know you love this, but extreme anything isn't a good idea.
Oh yeah. No, I totally agree. I yesterday had a talk about, like, we do weekly webinars with our people, and I had a talk about stress and resiliency and all that stuff. And I said, like, honestly, if you have a very stressed out life, there's a cool concept from Sea Health where they talk about the threat bucket. And there's so many things that go into your threat bucket. It's bad nutrition, sleep, relationships, but also exercise as well. It's like a big stressor for a lot of people. And if your threat bucket is already really full and you think you need to go to the gym every day and like put the final drop so that that everything is like spoiling over or spilling over. And I told them, like, hey guys, if you have a super stressful life, there is no need to go 100% with every workout that you do. The next time you do, friend, it's okay. If it takes you 4 minutes, it's okay. Don't freak out about it. It's not.
Hey, like, come on. It would take me like 8 minutes at this point in my life.
Or let's say 8 to 10 minutes, like depending on your level. But I think that the personal perception that people have is they want to kill themselves in the workout.
Yeah.
And this is the wrong way. I remember when I started CrossFit, a lot of the workouts that I did, and I think it's especially hard for people that are new to this sport, is I actually went super slow in the workout, trying to get better at the technique. And I think nowadays with watching the games, people just go bonk. They are muted. They can't do the movement properly. They want to use too much weight. And it's like, they have no conception about like how to actually get good at this. And then it's like, oh, this hurts, that hurts. I don't feel well anymore. And like we take actually big pride in being very strict with our members about adding weight and looking at the movement and telling them to scale down the workout, and that they will, and actually explaining, I think so much is the explanation that they get a better long-term stimulus out of like doing the workout the way that we recommend it that they do. But I think it takes a lot of time and effort to convince people to practice it like that. I think it's still this very much old school. We need to go hard every time.
Well, I think a lot of it comes, a lot of it, well, not a lot of it, everything comes from the source. And so I think it's like, I was lucky enough to have the experience of like being, translating for the CrossFit courses. So I've like taken the level 1 course like 15 times or something basically. And then, getting to go through, and then I did the internship. And so, I've had a lot of experience in sort of like what the core methodology of CrossFit is for like someone that isn't on staff. I would say that I probably have a lot more experience in it than most people. And it's really interesting because I have this, it's not I wouldn't say argument, but this discussion with people very often where I'm like, look, the CrossFit that you see practiced in a lot of the boxes is not the same CrossFit methodology that they're actually teaching in the level 1s, nor is it the CrossFit methodology like when I was studying for the level 3, like it's not the same thing. And so that's something that I really struggle with people, because even though like I don't necessarily live and breathe CrossFit anymore, I still love it for many reasons. And like one of the main reasons was introducing me to strength training as a female, which is so awesome. And also the community aspect of it. But I think it's like that Like it has to start with the source. Like if at a box owner, if they are not teaching that methodology, or if they understand CrossFit differently, it's like, of course their coaches and their clients are going to be the ones that are like, you know, they've got their shoulder. They're like, I got it, coach. Like, I'll be fine.
I don't need any scaling. It's okay. I can do it.
Yeah. Like, I don't need to scale. And I remember like in my classes, I think that maybe my style for where I was teaching was a little bit different, because for me, my style was, I was like, look, you're not impressing anybody by picking up more weight. You're impressing people by being able to stay consistent in your movements throughout this workout. And there are certain movement points that we are going to go over that I expect you to be able to maintain. But if I see that you're falling apart, I don't want you to take off weight in the middle of the workout. I want you to start with the same weight and finish with the same weight, but it might be lower than you think it is. And people
I always say that to people as well. You know, like the way I charge a box is, if I go in there, it's not about how many great athletes in there. It's like, what's the average movement quality of the box?
Exactly.
I think that's a really good indicator of if they understand the message or not. And very often there's a couple of people that are naturally born good athletes that are super strong, and they are like the shining stars of the gym. But they're like the average people that have a hard time learning how to move. If you don't spend enough time with them practicing and refining movement, I think this is where injuries happen. This is where overtraining happens, and a lot of these other negative things that we see, because people actually do not understand the core concepts. And as I told you, I've been teaching the courses for over 10 years now, and I still love to read the stuff that Greg Glassman put out. I think it's like a classic text to read in the meanwhile for me. It's like there's really good information. It's very well thought of and super clearly formulated. And it's like he talks a lot about elegance, like Glassman, in a mathematical sense, like the simplicity and beauty and the application of it. And I think in essence, the concept is super simple. Like when he says off the couch, off the carbs, it's like a super simple concept. And then, hey, train major lifts, go hard, vary a little bit. Like it's so simple in essence, but still so many people do not implement it well.
Exactly.
But the thing, what you were saying.
But you like, and you know this as well as anybody, where it's like simple does not mean easy. But I think people confuse that, because people look at something that's so simple and they're like, oh, well, that's easy. And it's like, no. like eating meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, like some fruit, little starch, no sugar is like, yeah, it's freaking simple, but it's not easy. And that's why also it's like, just like anything. I mean, I like to live my life sort of by like question everything. And so it's like, even that I see, like, as far as nutrition goes, I love it. And it's so simple, but like, I question it, because I'm like, look, yes, that is the simple ideal. And I think that would be amazing. But the fact of the matter is like, sometimes it's not that simple, because sometimes you just feel like eating some sugar, and that's okay. And that's exactly why it's like, that can be the sort of simple, like, absolute, but because there is no reason to go to the extreme on anything, it doesn't need to be the absolute all the time. And I think that's why, like, also with people with CrossFit, it's like, well, if I do CrossFit, I only do CrossFit. But it's like, you don't have to only do CrossFit. But at the same time, you can't, like, there's this, like, okay, so you can be a CrossFitter and not do CrossFit 6 or 7 days a week. But at the same time, if you expect to see progress in a certain program, it doesn't matter if you're a CrossFitter or not, you have to commit to something. And I think that's the sort of like the imbalance that people aren't able to get. It's like, they either don't want to commit because they don't want to feel like they're like in the cult, or they overcommit. And it's like going to the complete other extreme, where it's like, you know, the law of diminishing returns, right?
You know what it reminds me of as well is the last sentence in Fitness in 100 Words is regularly learn and play new sports. And it's this point where you get a little bit frustrated with people is when they rather go the 7th day in a row to the gym, going outside and trying something new and playing and doing stuff outside as well. And I think this is where where you actually see diminishing returns. I think that the application of sports, and we talked a lot about like brain related stuff as well. I think all the input that you get and the activation of your brain from playing soccer with other people, it's so different than standing in front of your barbell and lifting the weight. Not that is bad. It's a great
but it's a different it's a different type of brain activation.
Yes.
And I think that, I mean, so I used to describe CrossFit as like as playing for adults, because because I find it's so much fun, but then you see people where it's like, again, with the extremes, where it gets to the point where they're so stressed out about making it to that gym the extra day, or about like lifting a certain amount of weight, that it stops being fun. And that is also where I think you can definitely talk about this more than I can, where it's like that brain chemistry and those hormones, like, you know, if your cortisol is shooting up because you're like not hitting certain numbers in the gym, then hitting those numbers in the gym is not a good thing for you to be shooting for. I had a client who, her like stress relief was going to the gym. And so she'd go 2 times a day. And I told her, I was like, look, if you want me to coach you nutrition, you need to commit to also paying attention to these limits that I'm going to put on you, because I know you think that going to the gym more is going to help you towards your body goals, but it's actually not. And so trying to do like 6 days a week and then 2 or 3 of those double days is actually going to cause you more problems with your hormones. And it's going to make it harder for you to lose and keep the weight off. And so it was one of those things where it's like, I mean, again, moderation. Like, I feel like if we could figure out how to teach that, but I don't know, I think it would be interesting if you could explain sort of like the relationship between like overtraining or like too much intensity and the cortisol response. Cause that's something like from a scientific standpoint, I know you know a lot more than I do.
So I think one of the most interesting things for me to realize is that we are all really different on so many levels. And I think one is also how you respond to training and what your hormonal response to training is. And do you know Robert Sapolsky? He wrote an awesome book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And he's basically
I know that book. I haven't read it yet. Yeah.
It's a great book.
It's about stress management, right?
Exactly. It actually speaks about stressors and like, well, what is the difference between like primal stresses that we had that helped us kind of like getting out of this like homeostasis, like hormetic stresses that put us out of homeostasis and our body needing to go back to it. And like all these daily stresses that we have today, like answering all your emails, making the stupid phone calls that you don't want to make, having a super busy schedule, trying to like get everything, like your basically your whole life, making your whole life work. And I think that it's very different what we have right now in regards to that our system is not actually designed to deal with this kind of stresses. If you have like a financial stress because you need to pay back a debt, it's like you have this constant stressor every day in your life, and your cortisol levels will be really high, and you'll be basically you probably get cortisol resistant pretty quickly with that kind of stressor. And initially we had like a stress, and then it was like the activation of the sympathetic nervous system. Your body releases cortisol and adrenaline. You release energy, you use the energy, you burn it off. And then there was like a time where you had like relaxation, calmness, and the parasympathetic nervous system was working. So you had like a pretty good balance of like activation, flight or fight, and the rest and digest system where you could like get down, calm down, and chill out and ease. And I think nowadays it's the symmetry of this is pretty much skewed. And I think to training, like one of the things that we need to realize is even if we have 2 athletes that have totally like the same cortisol levels in their blood that we measure, they might be reacting totally different to it. Like some of them have less receptors that take in the cortisol. Some of them have more receptors. So depending on how your individual physiology, I think you can see fairly different responses that people will express even with the same training. That's what we all know. Like we put the same training load on people and we see, hey, this person fares really well with the training load. The other person does not. And I think this is also where this whole model of periodization, we plan something for a year. It's like, it probably doesn't work that well. Like what we'll see is you need to have, I think, a direction that you want to go with your athlete, but then you need to see how he's responding, and then you need to adapt. And definitely. I think this goes pretty much back to, hey, your body reacts very, very individually, probably totally different or very different to the body of somebody else.
I think, and I think it's interesting because one of the things that, you know, I talk to my clients a lot about as well is that it's also like stress is essentially when you have a stressor, it is up to you to decide sort of how you deal with that stressor. And there's certain things like, for example, maybe, you know, for me, waking up early in the morning to an alarm is not a stressor. But for other people, that could, like, having that alarm go off in the morning could really stress them out. And so I think that that's something where, you know, there's like the power of not necessarily, it's almost like the difference between like the chemical brain and the rational brain. I don't know if those two things exist, but maybe I just made them up. But like the rational brain sort of can make that decision of like, this is a stressor or this is not a stressor. Because essentially, like, the way that I understand stress is it's how you interpret it. And so like you can be presented with an obstacle or an issue, and it's your decision, partly through the chemical brain and partly through the rational brain, to say like, this is a stressor or this is not a stressor. But I think that one of the biggest issues is that like a lot of people, or a lot of just like, you know, normal people don't have sort of a system to either diagnose or deal with those stressors. And so they use sort of like generic things. It's like, oh, I'm stressed out, I'm going to go to the gym. But it's like, since we're not able to diagnose the other stressors in our lives, we don't know if the gym is actually relieving stress or adding stress. And
I think that's a really good point that you're making up, is like how you actually decide for yourself what's stressful and what's not.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are not really aware of it, and they see, I think stress has gotten a very negative connotation over the last couple of years. It's like almost everybody talks about this distress that's actually, if you experience too much of it, leads to like negative adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also something that we call eustress or I-stress. I don't know like how you pronounce it in English, but EU stress, it's like the positive stress, the good stress. It's
oh, sorry, go on.
No, but what I'm saying is like, I think both of them are stressors, but a lot of times if it feels great for you to go to the gym and you train really hard, you probably get something good out of it. On the other hand, very contrary, I think if you have a very stressful life already and you kind of like drag yourself to the gym, mm-hmm. and you're like, I need to push myself hard now because I want to, and you have all these weird reasons and not really enjoying it, I think the effect might probably be something different. Maybe more cortisol release. Maybe there's like, or very surely there's a difference in chemicals and hormones released in this situation. And it has very much to do with your like personal interpretation of the situation. But I think very interesting in this regard is, and I have this like, I think I read it with Robert Sapolsky in his new book. He has such a cool way to think about the brain and how it's basically structured. Mm-hmm. And he says, if you think about it, like the very bottom of the brain, it's the oldest part of the brain, and it deals mainly with autonomic processes, like mm-hmm. stuff that you need to live. Hey, are you breathing? What about your blood flow, the oxygenation of the blood? So all these things that are very elementary, satiety, like eating behavior, all this stuff. And then right on top of it, the next level in the evolution was we add emotion to that mix. So instead of if you're like a little bacteria or like a little no brainy animal, mm-hmm. and you're swimming around and you probably just follow the concentration gradient of the nutrients that you take in. But then I think that a really interesting next evolutionary step is that you say, hey, you add anger and all these emotions that we associate, that we have as humans as well, mm-hmm. to that mix, so that we actually get a stronger force to, if we need something, to do that. And on top of that, the kind of like the last thing in the evolution was the rational, the cognitive brain, mm-hmm. that kind of, now you have like this basic regulation at the bottom, then you have the emotional thing, and at the very top that you kind of, and that's what mainly the top of the, like the outer part of the brain does, mm-hmm. it's inhibition. It kind of suppresses your emotional brain. Yeah.
So it's like the instinct versus rationalization. Exactly.
And I think this is where a lot of these processes happen, is like they all talk to each other. There's so much crosstalk, and it's very hard to actually figure out what's doing what in the brain. But I think if you have a very weak rational brain, so if you have limited blood flow to your prefrontal cortex, it's making a lot of these inhibition decisions, or like the long-term planning strategy. If you have bad fuel to that part of the brain, so if you're not breathing properly, if you're not eating properly, all this stuff could lead to like bad blood flow to the brain, and in essence making you more susceptible to not being able to inhibit the very primal emotional responses to situations.
So basically you, like, if I understand this right, so you may have stronger stress responses due to the fact that like you're not able to rationalize as well as, you know, that perhaps has like a bad, like isn't, oh crap, what did I say? It was about so someone may have like an instinctual response to stress, but if they're not able to understand like the rational side of it, it can have a completely different effect. And so I think that what you're saying is I think also related to what we were talking about last week with like nutrition coaching, is that I think people don't have the tools to be able to discern these things. And so it's like, I think even, you know, on the emotional level, some people don't understand, you know, like, hey, I'm feeling this emotion. Where is it coming from? Because nobody's taught to be like observant of these feelings. And I think we're taught a lot, you know, that negative feelings are bad. So don't feel negative feelings. But negative feelings, like anything else, come from somewhere. And so it's like, you know, for example, for females, we're told like, you know, when you're premenstrual, like you might have these emotions, and it's like, okay, those two things aren't separate. Like though, like one is the cause of another. And those are layers to that brain where it's like, yeah, we kind of all know they exist, but we don't know how to put it together. So we don't know how to say like my rational brain is saying this, what's my instinct saying, and then like what's my biological need.
I totally agree. And I think this is so important. I think oftentimes understanding the issue itself helps you to deal better with it. And I think very often, as you said, is you actually, your internal processing of the emotion is really bad. You can't like really say why it's like this and why you're feeling like that. And you can't connect it to the other things in your body that are happening. Mm-hmm. So I think the interoception, the stuff mm-hmm. that you get from all your like internal organs and all that stuff, that signals to your brain is not that well developed. And then the other thing is, I think if you don't understand the system, so if you don't understand why you're feeling this way, it's oftentimes very hard to rationalize it and to deal better with it. And very often, when, at least that's what I saw, when you give people the tools and the knowledge, they make better decisions. And it's oftentimes that simple. If you talk to them about why drinking 3 liters of Coke every day is not reasonable and what's happening in their body, very often this information alone helps them to make a better decision in the long run.
And it totally does. And I think that it's again that double-edged sword, because it's like information is power, but then also as humans, we want instant gratification. And that's why we like things like, I'm going to go to the gym and get that hit of endorphins right now, rather than like, I'm going to take the day off of the gym because I need to rest and then I can get my hit of endorphins tomorrow. It's like, and that's, I think, where in training and in nutrition, the like from the professional side, it can be like, you sometimes feel like banging your head against the wall, because you're like, look, I get it. Like the pizza tastes good right now, or like the sitting on the couch feels good right now. But it's like, what is the investment in your future that is actually going to pay off longer or better in the long run? And that, I think, is where like, it's almost like the benefit and the downside of CrossFit, because the benefit of CrossFit is like the workouts are short, they're intense, and like you get that hit of endorphins right away. But also, if you can really stick to like the 3 on 1 off, or if you can auto regulate and know like when to like take down the intensity, even if everyone else in class is like going at super high intensity, but if you have the auto regulation skills, then that's an investment in the long term as well.
I agree, totally agree.
Yeah.
Like yesterday I did a heavy session of squatting, but I was like my first time going with a racing bike on Tuesday for 2 hours, and it was actually pretty intense for me. I have never done it before, and like I really felt my legs, and I still wanted to squat, but I know where to, like, for me it's so natural to say, you know what, this doesn't feel that great today. Mm-hmm. I'm dialing it back, but I still can feel, hey, even though I'm a little bit tired, I might be able to push harder if it feels good, but I think I know my body very well. And so many people nowadays that come to the gym, they have no connection to their body anymore.
Zero.
It's like it's separated. It's you go like, they can't distinguish if it's like they are sore, if they have pain, if it's, I'm like, really, you can't tell me if your muscle is sore, or if your joint hurts? It's like, that's weird. And I think this is where a lot of people, they don't feel themselves anymore. And then I think they knock themselves down with that intensity every day. Their shoulder hurts, doesn't matter. I just keep on going. And I'm like,
exactly. It's because we're not calibrated anymore. I mean, maybe it's not anymore. Maybe it was never. I have no idea, because there's so many like external like stimulus now, where it's like, how do you gain the tools if nobody's teaching you specifically? Like, how do you gain the tools to like stop and observe and sort of take a step back and observe, like say to myself, okay, how am I feeling right now? What are the sensations that I have in my body? Because teaching that, like, I know, yeah, I always bring it back to nutrition, because that's sort of what, you know, where I focus now. But with training is well, you know, with nutrition, a lot of it is like, hey, do you feel hungry? And I have people that they don't know what feeling hungry feels like. And like, that's one of those things that you sort of, you think like, how is it possible that you don't know what hungry feels like? But the fact of the matter is, you know, you think about it, like we're supposed to eat at this time, and this time, like, you know, when your family sits down to eat dinner, that's when you eat. So it doesn't matter if you're hungry or not. So if it's a skill that you don't need, why would you use it? And with training, it's like, well, you know, I've never done this before. A lot of adults, I'm sure now you see a lot of adults that are like, I've never done exercise before. And they come into the gym and you know, they're doing something like, oh my God, everything hurts. And you try to get them to understand, like, what kind of hurt is it? And they're like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, hurts.
And it's like, well, I want to help you, but I am not in your body. So I need you to help me understand you.
You know, I had a talk with Glassman 2 weeks ago. There was like a conference call with a bunch of other trainers from Europe, and in the DACH region, the German-speaking country region. And like I said, you know what, Greg, it's for me, it's really hard, because I think still most people that come to the CrossFit gym are the people that actually really are still a little bit more on the sides. I want to do sports, and I have done sports in my life. Mm-hmm. But my goal with my gym is I want to get all these other people out there that don't do sports, that have a pretty shitty nutrition, where you can actually, I think there's so much life-changing elements in the program that we offer, mm-hmm. But my impression still is it's very hard to get these people out, like get people in the gym. And that's what that's my vision for the future. Is like, yeah, I want to have all these athletes at my box, the people that really, that go hard, and they've done it for the last 10 years. But I want to get all these other people, like the older people, the people that are sitting too much, the people that are overweight, the people that are diabetic. And honestly, I think the solution to a lot of these problems is not a medical solution. It's a very practical, health-related, moving and eating differently solution. And I think this is where so many misconceptions in the medical world as well. It's like we're working so much on drugs and all that other stuff. Well, like most of the problems that we have, all these chronic diseases, are mainly issues that we have because of our environment and our lifestyle. And just by switching this and by getting people to understand and know that, that would be my dream gym.
I absolutely love that, because to be honest, if I don't, as a coach, I don't want to train the person that already is like, oh, I know what's going on. Like, I want to train the person that is coming in with these like wide eyes, like a child looking, you know, and they're like, what is this? Like, what is this world? And because I came from that, I didn't exercise as a kid. I exercised very, very little. I was a chubby ass kid. I didn't eat vegetables, and like coming into the world of fitness at the age of 20 completely changed my life. And so, and people, you know, people see me now and they see me and they're like, oh, well, like you're fit. And I'm like, but this is not like a constant. This is not something that I've been since, you know, for forever. This is like a conscious change that if you decide you want to do it, you can do it. But I think there's still a barrier to entry in a lot of the CrossFit gyms because there's so much media around like the people that are that extreme. And I think that CrossFit now is starting to change it with the, you know, they're showing more videos of like the people in their apartments and like the more normal people. But unfortunately, the media that still gets to the general public is that extreme. And it's like,
and as far as I understood Greg Glassman, like his goal really, like from the beginning, was to target these people. His goal never was to create the best athlete in the world. I think it was to make people healthier and fitter for their basic life needs. And I think the CrossFit Games were a great tool to prove how much capacity human beings can have in a lot of different areas. Yeah. But I think he himself realized that this is not the way he wanted to go. It was never about having the best athletes and the people that always go hard. It's about making the person living next to you that's overweight or sedentary, making them better and making them able to live their life a little better. And I think this is where he's like cut down everything. Maybe sometimes it was very drastic, but I love the step. And I think this is what we have done or tried to do over the last 10 years. And as you said it, for me, this is kind of like a fun situation. I really like to hone my skills, but I'm not like I think I'm not like the crazy athlete that stays 4 hours in the gym. And I can relate a little bit to that, but only like to a very, very, only like kind of a bit that people go really crazy with the training and that they want to get like the best in Austria, the best somewhere else. It's like, it's not me. I understand it. And I love what you said is this feeling when people come in that do it the first time and they see how much it changes their life after like 6 months. And like that's for me, that's the most rewarding thing. And I think this is, if you have been in nutrition coaching, in sports coaching, is if you really realize like how much you gave people, and how much you changed the quality of life. We just got an awesome email yesterday from a person that said, thank you for all the online work that you did and all the seminars and webinars, that she learned so much, that she still improved in this period as well. Mm-hmm. And this, I think it's so rewarding. And unfortunately, not many people have this anymore in their life. Like this personal relationship where you can really help somebody else to get better and healthier.
Yeah, that is basically the reason. So the reason that I started nutrition coaching and I stopped coaching in CrossFit as much is because I felt like the confusing part for people was like, you can go into a gym and you can get like a decent workout, even if you're not really paying attention. But like then with nutrition, it takes so much introspection. It takes so much attention that I felt like that was where I could make a bigger impact on an individual level. And that said, it's like, I still really, like, I have so much respect and so much love for what the methodology of CrossFit and the culture of CrossFit has taught me over the years. And so like people ask me, they're like, well, but I don't get it. Like, you don't do it anymore. And it's like, that doesn't mean I don't respect the methodology and that I don't think it's incredible. And that like every so often I'm just like, you know what? I want to do like DT or whatever. And I think that the methodology of CrossFit, being able to understand it, is so much deeper than what you see just like, you know, on YouTube or on Instagram or whatever. But there's that barrier still to like, how do we get people to understand what both of us know to be true? Because you can really only affect, like even you in the seminars, it's like, I'm sure you see people that in your head, you're like, these people don't get it. Where they're just here because they want to take the test and they want to get the test over with, but like they don't get it.
You know, I have a funny story in Portugal. I was in Portugal, I think it's 6 years ago, and it was a level 1 seminar. And normally, like, people are not supposed to train during lunchtime. I mean, if they ask the owner and the owner says yes, it's like whatever. But actually, they're not supposed to train during lunchtime. But there was one guy, and it was like one of the really fit dudes, and it was this, like, it was the first realization of somebody where I got like, this guy's not getting it. He squatted already really bad in his squatting group, and then he did a workout at lunchtime, and was the only person that I ever stopped doing a workout. And he said it's for a competition, and I said, hey, you know what, buddy, I'm sorry, this is against everything that I know and that we preach over the weekend, what you're doing here. Like, all his thrusters were like terrible with knees in and round the back. I say, hey, you know what? I don't care how fast you are, how good you're doing this. It's just a big mess. You need to stop now. I don't want the other participants to see that. And I think these are the people that really don't get it. And it's the same thing as, because we've been talking about that before. I have that quote from I read it with a weightlifting coach that said, like, hey, you know what? If people complain that the weight is heavy, that's why they're moving poorly, they just don't get it. They don't understand how to train. If the weight is heavy, you should be moving better, not worse. And if you can't move good enough, like, you are using too much weight to get proper adaptation. And I think this is it always amazes me that people don't grasp these elegant, simple ideas. It's almost like, okay, it makes sense. Move good, increase the weight, move good. It's like what we preach at the technique lecture at the level 1 seminar. It's threshold training. It's not like it doesn't matter how you move, you just ramp up the intensity. It's great.
And I think that's where it's like, there's, you know, everybody that, like, anyone that knows, like, if you know, you know, they'll say like more is not better, better is better. And like, that is one of those things where it's like, if you know, and you say it and you practice it. But then there's still so many people out there that you're like, clearly you don't know. Like, what are you doing? Like, how do you call yourself a trainer? Like, this is, you know, where it's like those people, even, and it's in any sport. Like, you see those people with like bodybuilding, and you're like, okay, you have your client eating 1,100 calories a day and doing like an hour and a half of cardio. Like, this is the perfect example of like, more is not better, better is better. Like, this poor person, the second they step on stage and get off the stage, they're going to have this horrible like rebound effect. They're going to gain a ton of weight. And it's like, it's because of what? Because you wanted to do more. Like, you couldn't figure out how to do it better. Like, I think that can pretty much sum up like the issues with training and nutrition and fitness, is that there's still people out there that don't understand the better is better.
Yeah. And I still think it's a lot of people really don't take the time to understand basic concepts. I often have this when I listen to lectures at the level 1 that other people give. Very often, like, people, they say the right words. They're actually teaching the information really well. But when they get asked a question, you really see whether somebody understood the essence of what needs to be communicated well, or when they're just repeating. And I think this is, it's so funny to see when other people talk about stuff that you know really well, is whether they understood something on a very deep level, or whether they're just superficially trying to replicate what somebody else said. Yeah. And I think it's some of the ideas are super simple, yet they are not so easy to understand, and I think they are oftentimes not so easy to implement.
Yeah, and I think that the problem on top of that is that, unfortunately, even though CrossFit is it's more cerebral than people realize. But I think that because there are so many meatheads in training, and then there's like the guy that was like, you know, like, I'm strong, like, I've got a 6-pack, I'm going to be a CrossFit coach. And it's like, I don't know if that's the best job for you.
Because we have been talking initially about Instagram. This is something that makes me nuts as well. It's what like the response to people to what they see on Instagram. And I think very often it's the guy that is able to do the most gets a lot of recognition for being a good trainer, even though he has no clue how to train people and has a lack of understanding of many concepts.
He just looks,
because he's showing off, and people go, oh, this looks amazing. If he can do this, he can be a really good teacher. I'm like, no, that's the reason why not the best soccer players in the world become the best soccer coaches. It's not the best athletes become the best coaches. It's oftentimes people that have a good understanding of the sport, but they are not so. I think you need to be a special type to be a really good athlete, or to be the best in the world. You need to have a special drive. You need to have a special background. But I think it's different from the people. I think very often great coaches are coaches that had personal issues. Let's say they had movement issues, they had pain issues, they had, let's say as a female, a little bit of like chubbiness issues, or they were too thin and wanted to gain weight. And I think by solving these problems that really good athletes sometimes never have, because they're moving that well, they never had that issues, they make you think more about how to do it to yourself and then how to apply it to other people.
Absolutely, 100%. And that is one of the things that I think here in Spain is recently starting to sort of come out. But for a long time in Spain, what I saw is like a lot of people were becoming coaches because they were really good athletes. Wait.
Sorry, I just talked to my daughter. So give me Sorry.
No. And so here I was seeing that a lot of people are becoming coaches because they were really good athletes. And that ended up being, you see these people and it's like, great, you know how to push hard and you know how to yell at someone and tell them to push hard, but do you understand the mechanics of what's actually happening? Or do you have the experience and the emotional intelligence to work with people? And so I think it's changing a lot here. But for example, like, I'm not a great athlete. I'm actually like a pretty mediocre athlete. Like, but that's fine. Like, I just, the reason why for so long that I think that I really got so deep into coaching movement is because for me, the movement isn't natural. Like, yeah, I have a great squat now. Like you see me squat and you're like, that girl knows how to squat. But like, that's because I've been working on it for years. Like, it's not because I was just like, oh, I know how to do this. Like,
yeah, but people are like this. They go like, ah, what's so hard about it? Why is the person next to me like making this knee thing? Why is he round?
No, actually in my level 1, I think I was used as the example for like, I think deadlift and squat, if I remember correctly. I mean, this was like 5 years ago or something, but I think like, I thought I had like great squat. And Pedro actually was teaching my level 1. And I think it was like his first time. I think he had like just gotten on to being a red shirt. And he pulled me, I think he pulled me in the middle for squat and for deadlift. And it's like, this is, it's a process. I think some people are born knowing how to move well. That doesn't mean they're going to teach you how to move well. Exercises, like the coach will often pick someone to be an example. And, usually it's the person that has certain movement faults. Yeah. and usually it's the person that you're like, oh no, I can fix that. And so I was pulled into the middle, me thinking like, oh, I can deep squat so well. And Pedro like fixed a whole bunch of stuff in my squat. And now, obviously this is like 5 years later where like, I still remember that stuff, but like, it's that stuff that people like, that stupid little tiny, like just playing around with how your body feels and knowing how it's supposed to look, and then comparing the two and doing it over and over and over and over and over. And yeah, I mean, I think that's the beauty. That's the reason why I think I'm still so in love with fitness and exercise even now.
It's the best. Like, really, I think it's such an awesome field to be working in.
Yeah.
And I think that's always what I want to do is like, I think I will never stop working with other people on their movements, on their nutrition, whatever it is, on their brain. I think it's always such a fascinating journey if you have people that you can like do something with, like maybe 1 to 5 years or sometimes longer, and to see the changes that you create and the happiness that you actually bring people back to life.
This conversation is making me want to get back into coaching CrossFit now.
I think, yeah.
Now I'm like, God damn it. I need to go back to working in a box.
I think only if it's like 2 or 3 times, like 3 hours a week. I think it's such an...
Yeah. Well, that's what I was doing. But at the box that I was at, the idea was to sort of like get someone in to like be there for more hours. And for me, it broke my heart because I had the same 3 hours a week for like the last year. And I loved like getting in there, and like you see the same people and they progress so much. And it's like you see someone, you're like, I remember your first squat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think, Basti, we have been talking for almost an hour, and I have to go prep for my client now.
Cool.
And we didn't even touch on the topic that we were going to talk about.
No, I had so much stuff prepared to talk about. We'll do this the next time, I would say.
Yeah, we're going to have to do, this should be like I feel like this should be a series. And actually I was talking, like, I know Instagram lives seem like so cool, but the problem is that you can't like record it, but it would be cool to see. I don't know how we could do like a YouTube live, because I know YouTube live, I think you can record it and replay it. Yeah. Because honestly, like, I feel like these conversations, getting input from other people as we're talking would be really so nice. Cool.
Cool. Yeah. I would love to do that.
Yeah. And it's like, it's so cool because these, like, I feel like our conversations just like flow.
It evolves. Yeah. That's what I like. Well, I think that's, you know, these awkward situations, I don't have that very often, but when you speak to somebody else and you go like, I have no clue what I should talk to you about.
Yeah.
And I think it's the total opposite now.
Oh, totally.
And it goes from one thing to the other and then back again. And it's still a very fascinating and interesting conversation.
Yeah. I saw what you had written down behind your head, like the insulin, leptin, and I was like thinking like, damn it, I do want to talk about this stuff, but I was like, but this conversation's so interesting.
Yeah, I would love to do it. If you have time next week, let's try to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think actually, I should have time next week. I will write you later when I sit down and look at my schedule. But yeah, we should keep this going for sure.
Cool.
All right.
I would love to. Have fun with your client.
Basti, have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.